Friends, we hear about Elijah the prophet today and walking 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb. And we hear again from the Bread of Life discourse in John chapter 6, which we hear from many weeks during the summer of the year cycle B on Sunday. So Elijah, he's fleeing from Jezebel. So right before this, he challenges the prophets of Baal and prevails. Lightning comes down, consumes his offering, and the prophets of Baal were cutting themselves and hopping around the altar, and nothing was happening. And so they put all the prophets of Baal to death. Jezebel does not like this at all. And she says, "If I don't do the same to you tomorrow, Elijah, may God do thus and so to me." So off he goes, running, fleeing. And he's exhausted. And he finds this broom tree and he lays under the shade there, falls asleep. And before he does, he begs for death. He's like, "Lord, it's enough. I'm done. I'm spent. Take my life." And he falls asleep and he wakes up. And miraculously, there is a hearth cake at his head and a jug of water. And the angel, "Elijah, get up, take and eat, or you won't be able to make the journey." And he does. What is a hearth cake but bread? Must be a significant amount of bread. And then he falls asleep again, and the angel wakes him up and says, No, you didn't hear me the first time. Take and eat and drink, because you got a long ways to go. And he does, and he's invigorated, he's energized, and he walks for 40 days and 40 nights to a place called Horeb. What is that? It's the mountain of God, also known as Sinai, where Moses stayed for 40 days and 40 nights and received the tablets of the commandments, the Decalogue, a symbol of heaven. He enters a cave there, and then after that, we hear about he sees the wind and the fire and the small whispering sound. But it's a symbol of heaven. He's invigorated by this bread of heaven, this hearth cake, and he walks those 40 days and 40 nights to the mountain of God. Food for the journey. Be nice if we had that food for the journey too. And I'm here to tell you that we do. We do. Bishop mentions in his document, Veneraire Murchenui, about St. Teresa of Avila, and somebody was complaining to her, saying, "Well, if I would have lived during the time of Jesus, I would be more invigorated in my faith." And she said, "But we have the bread of life. He's truly present here. So there is nothing lacking." We need food for the journey. We're on a pilgrimage through this life to the mountain of God, the kingdom of heaven. Jesus is the bread of life. We hear that in the gospel today. He's the bread from heaven, the bread of life. And they said, "Well, we know where you're from. We know your mother and father. What do you mean you're from heaven?" It's like, you don't get it. You can't see beyond this earthly reality. I remember one of our parishioners whose dad is now deceased. But I remember one time coming back from Mundelein as a seminarian, and oftentimes I'd look for places to stay that I didn't have to spend money on, because when you don't have a job and you stay at Motel 6, it's still about $50. And so this parishioner said, "You can stay with my dad in Omaha." And I stopped and visited with his dad. His dad, very, very committed Catholic. And he goes to daily mass, and he's like, "John, which mass do you want to go to tomorrow?" And he listed the masses. And I said, "This one would be fine." And we went. And he was in his retirement. He was widowed at the time. And he just had this incredible commitment to daily mass. You know, I didn't have the privilege of going to his funeral when he passed, but there was no man like this man. His name is Larry. No man like this man. He just committed to that, receiving that food for the journey, because the journey is difficult. And we might even say, well, how do we get through this day? We have busy lives. We have all these things. How could anyone go to daily mass? I mean, obviously Larry was retired. And Bishop Olmsted issues this challenge in Venere Morchenui, the document that he released in April on the Eucharist, means down in adoration, falling. He says, I challenge you to commit to at least one weekday Mass. One weekday Mass, in addition to Sunday Mass, of course, making that commitment every Sunday. One weekday Mass. He says, I guarantee that you will notice within the next 6 months what a significant difference it will make in your life. He challenges us to go to one daily Mass. And so, it might be a little difficult, right? Mass is at 8:30, and you're like, well, I used to go to work at 6 a.m. I don't know how I did it back then, but I worked from 6 until about 2:30, and then sometimes, before I had that particular position in my department, sometimes way later than that, working overtime. But I remember that frequently we used to have Mass on Thursday night here. I was able to go to that Mass. And it was a bridge between Sundays, right? It's like, okay, I've got this food for the journey that's going to help me make it to the next Sunday. And we have Mass here on Wednesday night. We have confessions before that. We have confessions on Tuesday night. But we have Mass on Wednesday night. And then, of course, daily Mass at 8:30. And there are other places where it might work better for you to go to daily Mass. There are places that have Mass at 6:30 a.m., 6 a.m., some places that have them at noon. But to make another commitment, and follow up on the bishop's challenge, I challenge you to commit to at least one weekday Mass. He guarantees you will see a huge and significant difference it will make in your life. Daily Mass has a different, cadence. It's more silent. I like it. I mean, I remember in the seminary when I was on one of the committees, one of the seminarians came in and approached the committee, I think it was on liturgy, and he said, can we just have a Mass, a one weekday Mass? Because all of our Masses were very much, we practiced what's called progressive solemnity, depending on the feast day. And he said, can we just have one a week with just no music, just like daily Mass in the parish? And the formators couldn't yield to that. They couldn't do that. They couldn't get there. But it's like, okay, brother, I hear what you're saying, because when we would come home for summer break, we would attend daily Mass, and you're like, oh, it's so sweet to just have this simplicity, the noble simplicity of daily Mass. Just this beautiful cadence, this beautiful rhythm that augments our daily life. When we do this, Bishop Olmsted says, it turns us from Marthas into recollected Marys who learn to choose the better part each day. So from Marthas, we're busy, into Mary, who sits at the feet of the Lord and breathes in the beauty and the grace, recollected. Friends, all of us need food for the journey. Elijah needed it, we needed it, and that food for the journey is the most holy sacrament of the altar. Let us receive this food for the journey and thank God for this gift that He has given us in the here and now.